From the beginning of Western speculation, evidence was credible only after it had passed through the refining fire of the Orientalist work. Edward Said, Palestinian intellectual, literary theorist, historian of the colonial narrative. Said explained how colonialism works, not just through armies, but through literature. Not just through conquest, but through anthropology. Not just through oppression, but justified through narrative. He showed how the West painted a picture. Said saw it in 19th century Western literature, and you can see it across modern culture. What stories are you being told? Latin Americans, drug lords, football players, dictators. The rational versus the irrational. Civilization versus barbarism.
I define neocolonialism as a situation where, say, any country, the economies, their cultures tend to be subordinate to those of the former colonizing, or say the West in general. It affects the mind even more than, but the mind is affected much more than just the economic materiality. Yeah, in a sense that there's a tendency for such societies to look for validation from the West. In other words, sometimes the initiatives from within the country are not valued, but if the same initiatives are kind of applauded in European capitals, then people have a tendency to say, oh, that's good, you know. So it's really a mental structure that has to be aware, yeah, in a way, because what is the colonialism of the economy and colonialism of the politics is easy to detect. The one of the mind is the harder to either both detect and eradicate. The question of languages then becomes very important in this respect, because the languages of power in most post-colonial countries are still European languages. The language of power that defines knowledge, administration, you know, economic exchange, legal institutions, you know, or legal practice, you know, are still European languages, you know. So any decolonization must really address the issue of languages.
Trinidad Creole versus Standard English. This is my living room. It have a standing lamp. It have a plush rug on the floor. It have 3 comfortable seats, and it have original art on the wall. In Trinidad, the official language is Standard English. It is the language you learn in school, and you are expected to use it for formal occasions. For example, if you are interviewing for a job or making a speech at a graduation. However, most people also speak the Trinidad Creole, a language that developed due to the mixing of different languages of people who settled here over time. Most people use the Trinidad Creole in informal occasions, for example, when you're talking to friends and family. Trinidad Creole is also used to make beautiful songs and poetry. Over time, many people from different countries speaking different languages have settled here and had to find common ways to communicate. This led to the emergence of a new language, the Trinidad Creole, which is mainly English-based, but also contains elements from a number of languages like French, Spanish, a variety of African languages, and Trinidad Bhojpuri or Hindustani.
She is considered a public intellectual. She is Jamila Ribeiro.
A young black feminist in Brazil called Monique Evelyn, and she used to say that I was never shy, I was silenced. And this sentence for me was very important to understand my childhood, to understand why many times in schools I was very ashamed to talk or to say that I knew something. And made me understand how in school they told us the history just by one perspective, the white man perspective. They didn't tell me that during the slavery time in Brazil, there were a lot of resistance, a lot of black people and indigenous people that were fighting against the system. They didn't tell me about marvelous women, black women, indigenous women that were leading demonstration and trying to construct another world. So for me, that's why for me it's very important to write. It's very important to break the silence. It's very important to understand how the history was constructed by just one way. And you need to confront the hegemonic idea, the hegemonic history that denies us humanity.
In 1917, the people of Puerto Rico were granted U.S. citizenship, but they have no effective representation in the U.S. government. Early in the 20th century, the Puerto Rican identity is directly threatened by policies of assimilation. Even the island's name was changed from Puerto Rico to Porto Rico. In their shared history, the U.S. has played the role of savior as well as the aggressor for Puerto Rico, dividing the political aspirations of the islanders. During the first half of the 20th century, there were many attempts to decolonize Puerto Rico in the direction of independence, but independence efforts in Puerto Rico by violent means were unsuccessful.
Visit Puerto Rico, America's favorite colony, territory. The Caribbean island famous for its tropical beaches, historic icons, breathtaking scenery, but mostly for... Fortunately, however, few know about the real Puerto Rico, a territory of the United States since 1898, when we seized it from the Spanish, who in turn stole it from the Taino, which makes Puerto Ricans U.S. citizens, well, second-class citizens, because despite fighting in every one of our wars, they still can't vote for president and have no representation in Congress. In other words, U.S. citizens who have fuck all say in the laws the U.S. government makes for them. And to bring you the ultimate colonial experience, we've made a few over the years, like the gag law, which banned their flag and brutally suppressed independence movements, bombing the crap out of Vieques for 60 years, conducting birth control experiments on Puerto Rican women, and of course, the Jones Act, which enforced a U.S. corporate monopoly that crippled local industry and, along with other crap, created shit tons of debt. Debt which Wall Street vulture funds bought up like blood-sucking chupacabras.
How does it feel to be fixed, captured, framed? Think of a lens. Use it when you read the media. Spot the stereotype. Decode the fiction. Unlearn the myth.